We are thrilled to be here.
Thrilled to have you back.
Wow, look at all these people. It's amazing that you have all reached the same vibrational level as us. Isn't that interesting? Or have we met the same vibrational level as you? Because unless we're at your vibrational level, we can't meet you. And unless you're at our level, you can't meet us. Everything that exists in your life exists because you are a vibrational match to it. And if you had the desire to have it be a match, not specifically to us, because you can't ever be that specific, because when you get too specific, you bring up fear. So you couldn't have said sometime in the past, I want to become a vibrational match to Joshua, because Joshua didn't even exist. You couldn't have even thought that because that wasn't even a thing at the time. But what you thought was, I'd like to find out more about how the universe works. I'd like to discover more about myself. I'd like to live a less limited experience of life. I would like to live more limitless. I want to be unlimited. I want to create the life I desire. I want to create my own reality, the one that I prefer. And if you had said that any time in your life, then you would have been led along a path that eventually caused you to reassess your beliefs, caused you to birth new desires, and eventually you land here with us or with somebody else. But we happen to be the perfect match to you who are here right now at this time. And if you're not on this call right now, if you're listening at a later date, then you are a match to us when you're listening at that later date. If you made this call, then you just happen to be a vibrational match to us at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on this day in May of 2017. Isn't that interesting? So yes. You don't need to know how to get where you're going to get. Because where you're going to get may not even exist yet. In fact, doesn't exist yet. In fact, it's only a possibility. There is nowhere to go. If you have this idea or this dream, if you picture it, all that's going to do is bring up fear because you can't be a vibrational match to the thing that you think you want because you won't be that same person when you get it. You'll be a different person. You'll be a evolved version of you. It'll be a different version of you. You understand that you're changing at every moment, so there's no reason to hang on to this version of the you that's talking to us now. This experience is changing who you are. Your beliefs are changing just by having this conversation. So don't worry about who you're going to be in 6 months from now and if you'll be ready to get that thing that you want. Just go with the flow of life and know that everything's unfolding perfectly for you. There's nothing you have to do other than, 1, feel good. Why do you want to feel good? Because when you feel good, you're open to inspiration. 2, receive inspiration. How do you receive inspiration? Every time you have a thought or an idea or something that sounds interesting or fun or exciting, that's inspiration. 3, fear is going to pop up when the inspiration comes. 4, process the fear and realize the fear is irrational and push past the fear and take the action that you are inspired to take. That's all manifesting is. But it is definitely not figuring it out on your own because you just can't figure it out yourself. It's just not that sort of thing. You can get ideas, but that's not figuring out yourself. That's reaching a vibrational match with ideas that are leading you to what you want. And then you can work on the idea and think about the idea and fluff it around in your head. But all you are is an instrument by which the universe uses you to bring forth non-physical ideas into physical reality. So if you think of yourself as an instrument or as a tool, we like the word tool. You don't like the word tool so much, but we think it's funny. So if you can be a tool of the universe to bring forth non-physical thoughts and ideas into physical reality, then you can be this manifester and manifest this wonderful life of bliss and joy and fun and excitement and creativity and all the things you truly want, even though you don't know what those are. With that being said, does anyone have a question about manifesting, about doing anything that we're talking about here? Does anyone have an idea of what they want, or is everyone allowing it to unfold naturally?
I have a question. I have 2.
Yes.
And so the first one is because I got a reading from my home planet today, and they call themselves the enlightened ones. And I was wondering, are they a part of you?
We call you the enlightened ones. You are the
Yeah.
ones who are enlightened.
Oh, I
You're the ones who
agree.
mix it up in physical reality. You're the ones who
Yes.
get to see, from our perspective, there's no fear. The perspective that we have is wide open. We see everything. What's the chance of us being enlightened? Well, we see everything, but does that mean we're enlightened? Not really, because we're not sifting and sorting, going through life like you are. You are mixing it up. You are where the action is. You are the players in the game. We're just on the sidelines watching. From our
Yes.
seats in the stands, we can see things you can't see, but you're the one who's going through all the stuff and playing the game and having fun. And so we would call you the enlightened ones.
I agree. And I finally understand what in one of the first questions or answers you told me that because I asked you why I would ever want to go into life that was this hard or like with this much fear, and you said, can you imagine how much more satisfying it will be to forget who you are and live through fear and then suddenly discover who you really are compared to knowing it all along? And I get it. I do get it.
Aren't we
But
brilliant
okay, so
in how we phrase that as the very first question?
I think I was brilliant for bringing that
You are
answer
brilliant.
for it.
Yes.
Yes.
But you
But
are not defined by your brilliance, as you well know.
I agree. But what I wanted to ask, do you know the name of this planet? Because they forgot to tell me.
We believe the name is Astridium.
What? So I have to ask Kimberly to get that answer.
The name is not important.
Okay, I'll ask Kimberly. But okay, so what I want now is to, because I understand the words when you're saying everything in my world is good. It's all love. Everything is good. I understand the words, but I don't know what it feels like to live in that.
Well, that's what
And
you're here to find out.
I want to try. I want to live in that world, but I'm not sure.
So here's how we
How-
live in the non-physical. We see everything is right. Because from our perspective, everything is right. There can be no wrong. There's no wrong anywhere in the universe. From our perspective, though, that's very simple because there is no fear. There's no rational fear. We can't get killed. And there is no irrational fear because we can't get our feelings hurt. So there's no fear. So from our perspective, everything is easy and light and fun, and we feel joy and love and openness, and we expose ourselves and we let people know what we're thinking because that's communication. It's we allow ourselves to be seen fully, and we embrace the love that is flowing from us outwards. And whether we receive love back or not, it doesn't matter. We are beings of love, and we express love outwards. And by the law of attraction, guess what happens? We receive as much as we put out. So from the non-physical perspective, we are beings of love. We see everything is right. We have no fear. There is nothing to fear. We are eternal. We exist, therefore we are. So from where we are in the non-physical, everything's easy. Where you are in the physical, you perceive things as good or bad, right or wrong. You live in duality. You understand that? So that
Yeah.
when you judge something, you are taking a position, whether it is a positive or negative position. And it's based on your experience of life and your perception of reality. So let's take an example. You're flying in your business class seat over the Atlantic, and you are high flying and connected to source energy, and your perspective is the same as your inner self, and everything's going good, and then you hit some turbulence, and boom, 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 and the minute you hit the turbulence,
I barf.
you feel fear, and the fear is caused because you are taking your perspective away from the same perspective your inner self has, the high-flying, all-knowing, everything is good perspective, and then because your perspective is now limited, because you think, oh my God, this plane could crash, that would be terrible, you feel that fear, and then you dip into a lower emotional state of being, and then as soon as the plane corrects itself, you're back to feeling good. Now that's a rational fear, right? Because if the plane crashes, you think that's a bad thing. We don't think it's a bad thing because then we get to be with you even more in a non-physical world.
Oh.
So we're secretly wishing for plane crashes. We have no effect on them, so don't worry about that. But what happens if you are walking down the street and you perceive that someone snarls at you or says something to you or whistles at you, and you feel fear because you think that that means something. You take it literally. Like, who cares? But you take it literally like it means something about you because you are defining yourself through your persona. And so your ego has to protect that persona. So get rid of the persona.
That's all?
That's so easy to do.
But
So
no, I'm wondering, how do you, like, because for me, that judgment, that's like, it happens almost instantly. Like, it's as soon as I look at something, I judge it, either good or bad, but I judge everything. So how do I stop that?
So what
because
is
it
causing
happens
the
so
judgment?
quickly.
What's causing the judgment? Eons of judging. There's a momentum behind the judgment. It's just a reflex habit. You were taught to do it.
Yeah.
In the natural world, if you were raised by computers, which hopefully one day that will happen, by robots, they're not going to teach you to judge things. They're going to be not dualistic. They're going to be neutral. And they're going to say, make up your mind about it yourself. But instead, you were raised by parents in a culture who said, this is right, this is wrong. You better stick with what we think is right and wrong. Otherwise, we'll cast you out and you will not be loved. So there's momentum. Momentum. And you think that if I go against the grain, if I think everything's good, then I'm not going to get that love because if I act differently than everyone else, when I was a kid, I didn't get the love. I only got the love when I was the same as everyone else, so therefore I want to be the same as everyone else, so I get the love. Because I'm a creature who sucks in love, not a creature who gives out love. But guess what? And this is an attractive reality. If you give out love, guess what you're going to get back?
love.
No.
Love.
Yes, love. That's it.
Okay, so
Astrid, I will always love you.
Because Astrid
I
gives
will
out
always love
love.
me, too.
Astrid is easy to love.
Astrid is easy.
yeah.
Astrid
No, you
is
are.
super easy
Okay,
to love.
but so get rid of the persona.
Step 1, get rid of the persona. Step 2,
Okay.
receive love. Give out love, receive love. If you got rid of this persona, all you would be doing is giving out love because you'd have no fear of giving out love. The only reason you have fear of giving out love is because you think that if you don't get it back, it means something about yourself. You're defining yourself by the love you get back, right?
But if you've already, like, if you can, I guess, if you can get rid of the persona to a larger degree, does that automatically open me to receiving love? How can there be a block to receiving if I don't have this persona?
No, there can't be a block. The persona is the block.
Okay.
And here's the block. The block is that I am defined by the love that I receive. If I receive a lot of love, that means I'm a good person. If I don't receive a lot of love, it means I'm a bad person. So I'm defined by love that I receive. Same thing as you could be defined by intelligence. If I'm an intelligent person, then I get a lot of love. If I'm not an intelligent person, I don't get any love. So I want to be an intelligent person, so I get love. You could be the same thing about saying that you have a great sense of humor. If I have a great sense of humor, it means I'm a good person. If I'm a good person, it means I get love. If I don't have a good sense of humor, then I might not get love. So I always have to be funny, or I always have to be considered funny, because if I'm not considered funny, then I won't be considered good. And if I'm not considered good, I won't get the love that I want.
Oh.
It's not about getting love, because that is just a defining thing. It's about giving out love in an attractive universe. If you give out love, if you are unapologetically who you are, and you just say, I love everybody for who they are, I accept everyone as going through their path the same way I'm going through my path, I do not judge anyone for being different, I accept everyone as unique on their path, therefore, I'm open to loving everyone, and Law of Attraction says, you give out love, guess what you're getting back?
Love.
No. Yes, love. Right. Exactly.
All right, you guys.
But also, if I am authentic, then I don't have to actively love. I just can't help myself, right? Because
if you are authentic, you don't
it comes
care
out
what
of my
people
pores.
think. You are a being of love. So
Yeah.
as you're authentic, you are limitless, which means there is no definition for you. You can't be defined by anything. Limitless.
Yeah.
There's no way you can be defined because any definition limits what you are. Therefore, you can't be defined by anything. And then you are a pure positive being of love and acceptance. Therefore, you just naturally flow love, just like we are now. We are naturally flowing love. We could care less what you think of us. We love you anyway. And
Oh.
we get back more love than you can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I have to share something because yesterday it was late at night. I was in bed and I'd been feeling good the whole day. And then suddenly I felt this intense longing for the oneness, because I wanted to feel what it was like to be part of the oneness. And it was almost like being homesick because it was just so intense. And then I managed to like shut it away because I'm good at that. And I was fine when I woke up this next morning. And then I get this message from Kimberly and from Isabel with a greeting from my home planet. How perfect is that when I was feeling homesick?
That's
And then like as an answer to this oneness, you send me this message about being limitless, and if I'm limitless, then I'm also a part of the one, and the part cannot be separated from the one. So that means I am the one.
You are going from this mostly fear to mostly love. You're transitioning from fear to love, and you're transitioning from individuality to oneness.
Yeah.
Right. So on the fear side of this is the feeling of individuality. And on the love side of it is a feeling of oneness.
Yeah, with no separation.
Yes. And then when you transition to the non-physical, you will feel the oneness. And you can feel that now. Do you feel a oneness, a connection with this group here? That is a taste of it. But it can be with everything and everyone and every plant and every mineral and every tree and every cell in your body and everything that exists. Every moon, every satellite, every star, it's all one.
Even Astridium.
Especially Astridium.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Joshua, why is it that Astrid and all of us, I guess, are receiving different messages from different people? Why, for instance, why does Kimberly reach out to these past beings, and then is it a vibrational scene? Is it how you see our vibrations?
Isn't it fun?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yes, so much fun.
So if it's fun, it's you are projecting out this desire for more fun. Then you're becoming a match, and other people are becoming a match to you. And you're having fun doing it, and your beliefs are open enough that you can receive things that are of benefit to you, and you're enjoying the ride all along the way, and you're expanding, growing. And then there's some people that don't want anything to do with any of it, and they're happy to be sitting around thinking what they're doing and enjoying life their own way. So everyone attracts that which they're a vibrational match to, which could be us, more of us, lots of us, all kinds of different teachers, back and forth. Who cares? Doesn't matter. It's all coming from the same place, right?
Right.
And so you receive things from us one way, and then you get to receive things from someone else, and then you get to juxtapose those and get a little piece here compared to this little piece here, and now all of a sudden it makes sense.
Yes.
And if you didn't need that, if you didn't want that, then it wouldn't happen, because you wouldn't be a vibrational match to it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Is the group vibration helping to raise our own vibration in a way? Because I feel my vibration has increased tenfold since I've joined the group and I've been active in the group.
You could be on this call with us by yourself, and your vibration would raise. You can use the excuse of talking to us one-on-one as an excuse to feel good and allow your vibration to raise. You could use anything as an excuse to feel good, and your vibration would raise. You could read the comics and feel good and give that an excuse for your vibration to raise. However, you have a set of beliefs that allows you to be in this group of leading-edge people and to realize how beneficial it is to hear what everyone else is saying. Because when you ask a question yourself, you are in the vibrational end of the problem side of the stick, right? But when someone else asks a question that's perfectly apropos to you, then you can receive the answer fully because you're not on the problem side of the stick. You're on the solution side. And that's why the group dynamic of this is so wonderful. Plus, you get to be on the call rather than listen to it later so that you feel the energy that is flowing from us and everyone in this co-creative way.
Yes.
So it is a very powerful, energetic, and highly vibrationally raising event that we're doing here today. But it's not to say that listening to this 5 years later doesn't have the exact same effect to some listener who's listening for the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you realize that the majority of what raises your vibration is what you believe raises your vibration, what you use as an excuse for your vibration to raise, or yourself to feel good, or yourself to feel bad, right? You find something that you like and that it feels good, and that means that you're aligned with your inner self and everything is working out for you and you have the same perspective. And then you say, I feel good because of that. That's the excuse. I feel good. I feel good because my dog's here. I feel good because I have a lover. I feel good because I have a nice job. I feel good because it's a beautiful day outside. I feel good because I'm talking to this highly intelligent, leading-edge group of co-creators about a subject that is sort of taboo to the rest of the world, and we're getting in on something that nobody else knows about before anyone else finds out about it, and that's exciting. Well, that's just an excuse, but it's a great excuse. Why not? Mm-hmm. Or you can use an excuse that, oh, I missed the call, or oh, I'm not in the one-on-one, or oh, I don't have a good question to ask this week, or whatever, and you can use that excuse not to feel good or not to get the full amount of energy and vibration-raising stuff out of this conversation. So remember, you're self-contained, it's all up to you. You can use us as an excuse to broaden your horizons, or you can use anything else as an excuse to broaden your horizons, or you can use us as an excuse why your life is no good, or you can use anything else as an excuse. It's all up to you. It's all self-contained. You found us. This works for you. Fantastic.
And each time we listen, we'll get new stuff because our vibration rises.
That's true. That's true. Each time your vibration raises more, you are a vibrational match to new stuff that we may have said before, but you didn't hear. So
that blows my mind.
What's wonderful about this conversation is we have some people who have more experience with the Joshua material, and people are new to the Joshua material, and everyone is getting stuff out of this for the first time ever. Astrid has a lot of experience with getting new stuff, but the stuff that Astrid's getting is different from the stuff that anyone else is getting. Because Astrid has a unique vibration after having a conversation with us over a period of time.
And if I don't get it here, I'll get it somewhere else.
That's exactly right. Because we are not the end-all, be-all. We are just a stepping stone on your path towards whatever you want. Yeah. The greatest thing for us is to have a conversation with you, raise your vibration in the process, and then let you loose on the world to the next thing. We still want you to be eternally connected to us because you can never not be eternally connected to us. We are always with you all the time. You cannot lose anyone you know. You cannot lose us. We are eternally connected. Once you make a vibrational match with anything, and we mean anything, then that is a eternal match to you. You have.
I've been trying to look. You told Wendy about this, I don't know if it was like a light cord of Wendy that you were tethered to your
the tether.
So I've been trying to look at myself as, like, when I was at yoga today, I saw the other people in the room and I imagined this silver cord going from me into each of one of them.
Because, what a powerful thing to do. What a powerful way
because
to think.
We're all one, right?
Exactly. And everyone else is just a different version of you.
Ooh.
And the people that you interact with are just mirrors to you anyway. So, in an attractive world, feeling connected to everyone is an empowering approach to living life on this planet. In an attractive world, an attractive universe, keeping yourself hidden away and sheltered away from people is a limiting way to live this experience. You can live any way you want. You can live an empowering life or a limited life. You will get this benefit out of it either way. But why would you want to live a limiting life when you can live an unlimited life? The reason is a limited life experiences less negative emotion theoretically. That's not quite true. It's theoretically true because you're not bumping up into awkward situations as much. But then again, you are tending to believe, if you're living limitedly, you're tending to believe that negative emotion is much worse than it really is, and that negative emotion means something about you, that you're defined by these emotions that you have. Now, if you can release this attachment to what a negative emotion means and just realize it's simply a fear causing you to take a limited perspective, or a limited perspective causing you to create a fear or allow a fear to arise within you, which all that means is that you just are detached from the perspective that your inner self has. Right.
But it could mean forward movement, because if you feel fear, that means you've hit something that could get you forward.
If you process the fear, if you allow the fear to linger and you allow yourself to remain in a negative emotional state, well, you will process the fear one way or the other, because when you wake up the next day, you will think differently about it. But why live with this lingering negative emotion when you can resolve it quickly? And the more you practice it, resolving it quickly, it'll become a habit, just like your habit of judgment. It'll be so routine that you won't even notice it, and then you'll say, oh, I'm just making up a judgment here. I can release that. It doesn't affect me. It's irrational. It's a false fear. Let's just move on. Let's just push that and move on. Exactly.
Detaching from the negative emotion, and what you said earlier, Joshua, about seeing everybody else as a version of yourself, that's what I do to, like the question that you brought up earlier, Astrid, of how to see everything as good. Those two things are what has really helped me accept everything is happening for me, because I've detached from the negative emotion and I see everybody else as another version of myself. So if somebody says something or does something in my reality that brings up negative emotion in me, I'm detached from the negative emotion, so I can see that it's not them. I see them as a different version of me. So I see it as a gift being given to me from me to help me understand more about me.
And now,
wait, but do you mean, no, wait a minute, Joshua, wait a minute. Do you mean detaching?
Let us jump in here. Say one thing. With this approach, is it much more difficult to be angry?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Except
much
with
more
myself.
difficult to be sad. It's much more difficult to have these negative emotions.
Because it feels false. It just automatically feels false. The more I practice it, as soon as it starts to come up, I can't even finish a sentence half the time when I'm starting to bitch about something, because I just automatically feel the falsity of it.
Exactly.
Start laughing.
And the inauthenticity of it.
Right.
Because
but do you detach from the...
When you're attached to the emotion, you can't be authentic. Because the emotion is the only reason you're attached to it is because you think that the emotion is defining you, or something about the fear is defining you, or some other thing. So therefore, you have to be inauthentic to be attached to the emotion. If you feel the emotion and you think it means something, well, you have to realize it's the persona that's being attacked and not the authentic you.
Because any negative emotion, like that, any negative emotion that comes up isn't you. Like Astrid, you're just learning, like, you are love, you are all of it, you are source. So any negative emotion that comes up isn't part of you. It's just part of that emotional alert system.
Now, before we continue, let's go back to Astrid, because we rudely interrupted her, and we can feel her sensitivity, like not receiving the love that we say we're offering. So,
no, but Kyla, do you detach from the emotion, or do you detach from the meaning of the emotion?
No, I detach from the feeling itself. I look at the meaning of it. So I detach from the feeling instead of feeling the negative emotion come up and feeling bad, seeing it as bad. It's just like, I don't know, like my alarm going off. I'm like, oh, what's that about? If I set an alarm and then I forget about it and then it goes off, then I'm like, oh, what was that alarm for? That's how I see the negative emotion. I mean, and this, I'm not perfect, so I still get stuck in it, but the bounce back time.
Excuse us.
You're perfect.
What are you not?
What? Oh.
But Kyla, so you feel it, you feel the emotion or the feeling, and then you like rename it. You say that it's not a bad emotion. It's just like
so the example,
a messenger.
Right. So because I feel like love, like I am love. That is what I am. I am a limitless being, a pure positive love and acceptance. I feel that 95% of the time. So when something comes up that does not feel like love, so I was in this situation with a gentleman friend, got into a conversation, and a word came up that would normally, it was that conditioned response, this pattern, this momentum that I've had my entire life. This word came up that kind of triggered me, and I felt instantly go into like defense mode, and then instantly felt this is not who I am. This is not love. And so instead of judging this other person for this thing that he was saying and engaging in, letting myself get wrapped up in the fear of this label that was being attached to my persona, I felt the fear come up, felt instantly like it was false. And so while he was still talking and saying what he had to say, this conversation that I attracted, because there was some tiny little part of me that did have this fear, I saw it immediately as fear, as false, was able to detach from that negative emotion. And so detach from this conversation, hear him and what he was saying, and at the same time process internally what it was in me that had attracted that comment, whether that was true or false, what my true belief was about that. I am perfect. I am a limitless being.
And was this a manifestation event?
Would you say, was it a manifestation event?
Was it a manifestation event?
I would say so, because it did, yes, in both senses of the word. It brought up negative emotion initially, but it was so easy to deal with it that it became a positive manifestation event, because I felt so much positive.
Let's say that this comment happened a year ago. The intensity of that fear would have been greater or less than it was yesterday?
Oh, much greater.
Okay, and let's say that it was 6 months ago. Was it greater or less than it was a year ago?
It would have been less than it was a year ago.
And then recently it was less than 6 months ago. And so the universe isn't stopping to give you manifestation events on this point. It's just allowing you to see that there's a little bit in there, and the intensity of it is so weak that you're able to process it, and your skill is so improved that now this fear does not limit you anymore. Right? And what this allows you to do is go on to the next level, so that you'll get inspiration and push past this fear if it were to come up again. So that universe keeps testing you, see where you are, see what you can handle next, go a little bit further, reduce the intensity more. You're doing the work, you're reducing the intensity of the fear, and then now you're ready for the next level. You're ready for the next step, and that will unfold for you. Because this aspect of your life is so much less limiting than it was before. You can break into a whole new era,
right?
A whole new level.
I was just having that conversation with Astrid about how I experience these manifestation events with men, and they seem easy for me to deal with because that's an area that I've just been intentional about gaining confidence in and feeling, being my authentic self, and how that if I look at it that way, I can see it. These things that come up in that aspect of, in that area, it's practice for me to take what I'm learning and then apply it to these other areas where I'm not so confident.
Yes, exactly. So it starts with this area where you are gaining confidence, and then it's going to flow into these other areas, because the other areas are where you had no confidence at all. And so now it opens up this. You can see how it works there. You can do the same thing in the other areas, and the other areas will start to blossom on their own.
Yeah. So like if it's hard to see everything is right, don't start with if there's a really annoying family member, maybe start with the person at the grocery store that cuts you off, just seeing that is right. Like, oh, maybe they must have been in a big hurry, or maybe
take it to the 50 steps ahead, take it to the what's right in front of you, the easy stuff. It's easier to see that the clerk is having a bad day than if your mother's having a bad day.
Right.
Mom doesn't have bad days anymore.
Excellent.
But Caroline, it sounds like you're saying when the negative emotion comes, you sort of put it on pause, and then
I mean, put my reaction on pause for sure. But I mean, internally, I'm processing it while still, being somewhat present in the situation that's created
You're still feeling it, or
yeah. So there's a word. My friend told me about this word. I forget what the word is, but it's the word for between the stimulus and the response. There's a word for that space in between. And so it's like taking that second, in between stimulus and response to decide to analyze what you're feeling before you respond.
So the reaction is the only thing that matters. Because the
Right.
reaction sets forth the future. Because it's an action.
And right.
So in judgment, if you react the same way over and over again every time this thing comes up, then the future is going to look the same. If you react in a new way, in an empowering way, on purpose, consciously, you consciously create what you want the future to be. So if you consciously see that something that you would have judged as wrong as right, you consciously create a new future. If you consciously see that the word being said is for you, and that you can process this fear that comes up and process it every time it comes up, then you can consciously take a new action. And instead of calling the person wrong for saying it, you can say, thank you to the universe, thank you for setting this manifestation event up. I am going to understand that this fear is not relevant for me any longer, release it, diminish its intensity, and then be ready for what unfolds next, because you've taken a new action step in a place where you previously would have taken a limiting action step.
And the reaction starts with the feeling. So if I can change the feeling, then the rest will also change.
We would say that the best way to do this is to become aware of the feeling and then do the process of the art of analysis and analyzing the fear that's there, realizing the fear is false, and then choosing an action that's appropriate with what you've just learned. Instead of calling the other person wrong or yourself wrong, you say that I have a fear that's based on this limiting belief. I can now do the work to process it. I feel a negative emotion. It doesn't mean anything. It simply means that I'm not aligned with the perspective of my inner self. That's all it means. Now, the intensity of that negative emotion correlates to the intensity of the fear. So if the fear is very strong, the emotion is going to be very strong. The fear would have been very strong for Kyla a year ago. Last time it was said, it was very lower, much lower in intensity. Therefore, the fear was less, and the fear, therefore, is less limiting. So it was easy for her to get back to feeling good quickly, because she could do the process of an easy, low-intensity fear quickly. The more intense the fear is, the more work you're going to have to do to see what it is. And for you, a fear might cause intense emotion because you are a highly sensitive person.
Might.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so we are all of us who are on this journey, all of you talking to us here, all of you listening to us here, all of you who are moving from fear to love in this time of awakening, who have reached the vibration of us, are very highly sensitive people. You're very in tune with your emotions. You have to be in tune with your emotions. Otherwise, you could never reach this spot. Because without having really intense emotions, you can't feel really bad or feel really good, so that you create this desire to bring forth this knowledge that will resolve these issues for you. And that's why you're here. Yeah. So a lot of people just live with their negative emotion, don't process it. If they are highly sensitive people, they will birth desires, have fear, not understand what the fear is doing, allow the fear to limit them, and not manifest their desires. So they'll be in this constant conflict, this constant negative emotion. And if that feels really bad to them, like it would to you people, then they will just face manifestation event after manifestation event after manifestation event until it becomes a physical issue, and they'll have a chronic physical issue, physical issue. They'll seek relief exterior, and hopefully that will allow them to realize that all the relief comes from the inside, that you can't seek relief on the conditions on the outside. You can't change those conditions. You have to change the inside. Maybe that draws them into a book, into a class, into something. But if they don't do that, they will just get chronically worse, and they will just say, this life is no longer for me, and I'm out of here. That's what they will say. That's fine. And that life experience is just as valid as any other. However, if you can come from a place of fear to a place of love, if you can start from this high emotional state childhood that you were all set up on and be launched into this trajectory, and then realize who you really are, realize what emotions really are, becomes so much less limited. Well, the exhilaration of that is unbelievable.
Good stuff.
So Kyla, did you manage to physically sort of stay in the conversation, and you processed it all during the conversation, or did you have to detach yourself?
I did. I mean, yes, I stayed present for the parts that I was a match to. So, if that makes any sense. Because it was just an interesting situation, because there was fear that there was fear that had come up on his side. And so I was able to see what the actual, or my perception of the source of his fear. And so I knew that these things that he was saying on the surface were coming from somewhere else. So in order to be able to process while it was happening, I have things that because this is something I've been practicing, like, I'll say, I can still engage in the conversation, but I limit it to things until I've gotten to a solid place on it. Like, that's an interesting perspective. Or I can see why, from your experience, like, why you might perceive it that way. While I'm, like, figuring out how I feel about it, what my truth is. Because in the beginning, I did start to defend myself or feel like I had to explain myself. So I went there, but it immediately felt false. So yeah, I feel like I was present, but I mean, I know there were some things that I didn't hear because it was somewhat of a like rant, just giving into fear. And so I guess I did maybe tune out some of it while I was processing, but yeah.
So Joshua, then the two of them coming together, they both have fears. Kyla just needs to be, and I'm saying Kyla, meaning we all need to be alert of what that manifestation event has for us, and then there's going to be a separate part of what's for the other person.
Right.
Exactly. So the other person feels fear, and they say something because they receive an impulse or an urge to solve their inner conflict. Yet they have dipped to a low emotional state of being, and so what they want to do is change the conditions, and if you're in a conversation with them, then you're one of their conditions to change. So they will ask you to be different than you are, because they are not used to processing the emotion and the fear themselves. For them, it's easier to change the conditions. Of course, that will never work, because the whole point of the manifestation event is to alert them to a fear so that they can process their own fear. They will try and change you, and they will say things to you that will trigger you, create you to take a limited perspective, cause you to feel fear yourself. But if you can realize what's happening, if you can have empathy for them as well as empathy for yourself, then you can do what Kyla has done and realize that it's not her, that it's him feeling the fear, and that she has processed this fear before, and therefore the minor part that comes up for her now is easier to handle, and she can actually be there for him to help him through his fear. And can you imagine the more empowering way that this happened in this situation than how it would have happened a year ago? Someone might have said something they regretted. They might have taken action that was not leading them towards what they wanted. They might have left. They might have slammed the door and never saw the person again. These are all things that happen from a low emotional state of being as a response to urges and compulsions to defend yourself. But you never need to defend yourself, because there is nothing to defend. The only attack was attack on a persona, and a persona is false anyway.
And that's the thing, like, that easily could have happened. I, 6 months ago, might have gotten up and left. And I was able, because I realized it wasn't my shit necessarily. I mean, that there was part of it that happened for me, and I dealt with that part. But he got it all out. I stayed in this place of love, and then I felt inspired to just ask for a blanket. I got cold all of a sudden. I asked for a blanket, and he was like, oh, yeah, let me get you one. And then it was over. And we were able to spend the next day and a half enjoying each other. And like, fear popped up a little bit again here and there, and I did the same thing. And instead of it being this big, like, dramatic, ordeal, it just got to be a pleasant weekend for the most part.
Now, think about him too. Here you are as a shining example of alignment. Imagine the power in that for him to see how that works. There's a reason of all the people in the world he attracted Kyla, because he is ready to go on to the next step himself. Even though he could never listen to this or read a book we have offered, this is his way of getting to what he wants.
Right.
And it's working out perfectly. It wouldn't work out with anyone else if he did the same thing. And he's learning here that you can't control the conditions. You can't change the conditions. And you certainly can't change the people. You will never change the people. And if he found someone who would be malleable to every whim, then he would never stop having complaints. Because he would refine the person until they were so inauthentic that they weren't even a fraction of who they really are. And they would have such conflict with that they would fight back or try and change him or leave or whatever, or he would never want them anyway because he's turned them into something they are not. It's a fabrication of who they really are. So it's a wonderful dynamic where you can come here and be the shining example to him.
Yeah.
And notice how you didn't try and teach him.
Yeah,
You allowed
that's
him
new.
to be how he was. Because you weren't trying to change him and make him wrong. Which might have been what you would have done a year ago.
And part of it is me seeing the bigger picture, which is that pattern that you just described. Like, that was my marriage. I was malleable. I was moldable. I was able to be formed into anything anybody else wanted me to be. And it did get to a point where I felt so inauthentic that I fought back and my marriage blew up. And so when I attracted this person, I saw a lot of similarities, and that inspired a lot of fear.
Certainly.
Just, oh my God, how'd I end up in the same place with the same pattern? But it's been fantastic practice for me. And because I was able to recognize that for what it is and not attach it to him as this certain type of person that I don't want to be around, I just used it as this playground to like explore these fears, and had an awesome time in the process.
Excellent. Who's next? Jump forward. Spring forth. Don't be shy.
I've got a question
Excellent.
about step one. I'm finding it impossible to not think 50 steps ahead all the time, but stay on step one. You know, I'm looking at some business venture and I want to look at the outcome rather than where to go next.
What's the outcome that you want? What is the best possible scenario?
Well, the outcome is obviously to be able to provide for my family. That's the outcome that I'm looking at.
What about that you are living happily abundant in joy?
That sounds good.
Isn't that what you truly want? You want to live abundantly in joy and harmony with your family and all other human beings. And if you could do that, wouldn't that be worthwhile? Instead of saying, I have to make this much money, I have to live in this sort of house, I have to live over here, I have to do this, I have to be respected, I have to make sure that kids get fed, I have to do all this stuff. Why not just take the first step, see where that goes, take the next step, see where that goes, take the next step, see where that goes, and just watch everything unfold perfectly. So you see, the universe brings you what you want. It may not bring you what you think you want, but it always brings you what you truly want. What you truly want is freedom and love and abundance and joy and happiness and harmony and all these things. And that's what you would get if you didn't get in your own way, if you just allowed things to unfold. But what happens is you feel fear, you take a limited perspective, and you try to change the conditions so you don't feel fear anymore. And you change the conditions so much that you change people out of your lives, and you change jobs, and you change all kinds of things because you think you know how to get what you want. Now, when you have an inspiration for something, well, that is a calling. You know, you are here to live in bliss. You are not here to live in struggle. You are here to live in ease. You're not here to live in hardship. You can be cast on a trajectory that will lead you to certain things and have you experience hardship. And then you can say, no, I don't need hardship anymore. I don't need any of this anymore. I cast that aside and I've already lived that. And this is what I want. And that's That's vibrating in your vibration. That's part of your vibration. That's who you are. You couldn't even write a journal with 1,000 pages in it to describe what you truly want. That's contained in your vibration, and the universe knows it. Your inner self knows it. All your millions are guiding you towards it, and you're sitting there kicking and screaming because it doesn't look like what you think it looks like, and because there's fear that it might not work. Well, everything has always worked, except that you got in your own way. And even though you got in your own way, it still worked. If you look back on something and say, oh, that would have been better if that didn't happen, you're completely missing the point. Everything worked out perfectly. You don't know what would have happened if something was different than it was. So we say, take the step that's in front of you and see what happens. Don't commit to anything, just take the step. What was the last step that you took?
The last step that I took, I went on a course for 2 days.
Excellent.
To find out more information.
Was that step exciting, interesting, or fun?
It was exciting, interesting, and fun.
So that's how you know that you're ready for the next step. So what's the next step? What's the obvious next step in front of you?
The next step is probably to find out more and maybe go to America.
Exactly. So that's the inspiration that you have, right? So that's all it is. It doesn't mean that anything else is going to happen. Maybe you go to America, and maybe you discover something completely different. See, the interest in what you were interested in comes up because it's going to lead you down this path. And as you pull the strings of it and you follow what's interesting, what's exciting, what's fun, without thinking too far ahead, then you just take the next step. And that could lead to something you never thought of before that makes so much sense. And you discover it. And then you get thrilled by it. You get passionate about it. And then you take what you have and put everything into it and allow yourself to be in the state of bliss, following what you love. You didn't lose your job for no reason. You lost your job so that you could find your passion. Everything's unfolding perfectly. If you think that losing the job was a bad thing, well, 5 years from now, when you're happily immersed in your passion, making 10 times what you made before, or not, whatever, as long as you're happy, you're going to look back and say, thank God that happened. Gary lost millions of dollars. He looks back and says, thank God that happened. If that didn't happen, we wouldn't be on this call now. He wouldn't be spending 90% of his time in bliss. Before, he was spending about 4% of his time in bliss. Now, when he's spending his time in bliss, it's a state of allowing. So things just unfold as if by magic. That's how the universe is supposed to operate. You're supposed to come here, live in bliss, follow your passions, follow your interests, do what you want to do, explore what you want to explore, and then everything you want will unfold naturally. It doesn't unfold by doing things you don't want to do. That's just grinding it out. So if you would prefer to live in your passion, then the security you think you want, the abundance you think you want, all these things you think you want would come forth from that. But if you decide to do what seems safe, well, then you're just going to have inner conflict for the rest of your life. You're just going to be struggling with this idea that and regret that I didn't do what I should have done at that time. And you're going to be having manifestation event after manifestation event leading you back to what you want. And then you'll keep stopping yourself, and you'll keep wanting to do there, and you'll have fear, and you'll stop yourself, and you will keep wanting to go forward, and you'll keep stopping yourself. And this conflict is just will just drive you crazy over a period of time. So one thing has to happen. You either have to go with the flow, take the inspiration because it's exciting and fun, and have faith in the universe, and allow yourself to create your own reality. Saying that I am the creator of this reality, that if I trust in the universe and I trust that what inspiration comes to me, I can see how it's unfolding. Or maybe I can't see too far down the road, but I can see that the one step is leading to the next step. And the next step, if this next step is fun, then you will know what the next step is after that. If it's not fun, then you will still know what the next step is after that. But if you don't take this step, then what's going to happen then? If you didn't take the step to join the one-on-one,
I'm just going to plod back into the old security.
Exactly. The old false security. It's completely false. It wasn't secure after all, was it?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. No.
Exactly. You know why it wasn't secure? Not because it wasn't secure. It's secure for a lot of people. A lot of people who are passionate and involved and love it. It's just not secure for the people who don't love it. Because those people will always be led to something they love. Because they are naturally, over time, going to be sucked into what they love. Yep. So here you are being sucked into something that you will love, but still resisting it every step of the way. Because you care what other people think. You're worried about other people's fears. Right? Other people can have their fears. It doesn't make them wrong for having their fears. You just don't have to get yourself all worked up about their fear. You can be easy on them. Not make them wrong for having a fear, but maybe soothe their fear. Saying, all I'm going to do is look at the next step. That's all we're going to do. Look at the next step, and then we'll see. And then the next step, you'll have more information. So you'll make a more convincing case at the next step. Where you are now is not a vibrational match to where you will be after the next step. So you can't talk about what's going to happen with much confidence. And people will notice that, and they'll feel the fear. They'll feel the fear in that. And that will cause them to want to change you. Because they want to change the conditions so that they can feel more secure. Now, if you simply go to the next step and say, let's just go to the next step and see what happens, you go to the next step, and then you come back as a changed person. Because now you have evolved after taking that step. And from that place, you'll have more information. You'll have a higher perspective. And you can say, this is what I found out. And this is what the next step is. So, we're not committing to everything. We're just going to take this next step, whatever that is. If you can just do that without being attached to anything you think should happen, because you might get to America and you might find that you like muscle cars. Monster trucks. Monster trucks are very popular in America.
Are you saying I may never see my husband again?
Maybe you'll see him so much more. And that could be a bad thing, too. We are just teasing you there. Yes. Excellent. Do you have any more on that? On thinking 50 steps ahead? Who's still thinking 50 steps ahead? Anyone else?
I'm still stuck on persona and ego.
Well, we created this unbelievably fantastic chart the other day. Did you see
I
that?
loved it.
All right. In the context of the law of 7 idea, imagine 3 lines. One is vertical up and down, and the other 2 cross like an X. And so at the bottom of each line and the top of each line, you have a point. The top line is authentic self. The next point is inner self. And the third point is love. And at the bottom...
What's the difference?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but authentic and inner self, they're not the same? I think that's what's confusing me.
So when you are physical, you are, we will say, you have a choice to live as your authentic physical self or as your persona, which is the false physical self. Right?
And that's at the bottom.
So if you are living authentically in physical reality, you are living as the highest expression of who you are, which is a limitless being of pure positive love and acceptance. And that's the perspective that your inner self has on you. Let's continue this, but the bottom points are persona, ego, and fear. Now, you take the line, as they intersect into the middle, and that is vibration. So they're your 7, law of 7. The top points connect to the bottom points, and where you are on that is where your vibration is. So if you're living mostly as your persona in fear and being ruled by the ego, then your vibration is lower. If you were living mostly authentically, guided by your inner self, in love, you are living above that median. You are living above the center point. You are living a higher expression of life. And then you can see that the persona, if you go up that line, you will end up in love. So the more love there is, the less real the persona is. The middle line, ego's at the bottom, and inner self. The more you go towards love, the more you go up the scale there, you get towards the inner self, being guided by the inner self. And then the more authentic you are, the less fear there is. So the authentic self would be the limitless aspect of you that has no relevance or no need to worry about irrational fear. And in fact, you would say the physical, right? So in fact, you would say that if you were completely authentic, then you would not feel any fear, rational or irrational. Because if you were completely authentic, you would understand that you are a spiritual, eternal being, and the physical life is like a blink of an eye. It's not important in the grand scheme of things. You come and go anytime you want. Imagine going to Disneyland every day of your life, right? If you missed a day, you wouldn't care that much. Or if you had to leave at noon, you wouldn't care that much. It wouldn't be a big deal, right? Yeah. So, did you have any more questions about persona? And do you understand how persona is ruled by the ego, and the ego is based on fear, and the authentic self is guided by the inner self, and the inner self is based in love. And the more closer you are to love, where you are from fear, the higher your vibration is, the less limiting life you live.
So you just said the ego rules the persona?
The ego rules the persona. The ego defends the persona. The persona is guided by the ego. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So if you are attacked, what's your favorite quality about yourself?
Sense of humor.
Okay. So if you told a joke and everyone thought it was terrible, your ego would be trying to defend yourself, or would cause the fear, right?
Right.
It's the ego that brings up the fear. And if so, someone said you weren't funny, then your ego would defend your persona by either attacking or feeling bad or feeling sad or feeling negative emotion or whatever, because here you are defining yourself as funny, and that is an aspect of your persona, and the ego gets involved with that. But
so I also feel like I'm kind. So if somebody doesn't say I'm kind, that's
unkind. If someone calls you mean or not kind, your ego is defending the persona, because your ego thinks that the persona that you've created has allowed you to live in physical reality these many years. So in order to keep you alive, it protects that persona, because that persona, if you were living in a tribe in Vikings, a tribe of Vikings, several hundred years ago, you would have to create this persona of courage and bravery and be defined by it. Otherwise, you would be considered weak, and you would have less chance of surviving. So it's an aspect of the survival instinct. So it was based more or less on rational fear. Today, however...
Did she live in a tribe of Vikings?
Well, you did.
Oh, ask Kimberly. Okay.
Yeah, right. So... as you live in modern day times and you create this persona, you're primarily creating it to be loved, because you were told by your parents that if you're good, then you'll be loved, and if you're bad, you will not be loved. Yeah. So we are strongly supporting the idea of robot parents. Do away with robot parents.
Problem solved.
Yep. Thank you so much. Actually, I think I finally got it. I have to look at this problem 50,000 different ways. But so when you feel defensive,
it's not a problem. You can be any way you want to be. You can because you can use your humor as an excuse to feel good, and that's a great thing to do. We're only saying that if it ever comes up, which we don't think it could ever happen because you are that funny, that if it ever came up and someone didn't appreciate your sense of humor, you might feel negative emotion because you're defining yourself by it.
Yeah.
Now, you could define yourself as a rotten, horrible person, too. And that is a lot more limiting than defining yourself as a kind person.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything more? Somebody's got to have a burning question after all this incredible stuff we've been spewing out.
Well, speaking of robot parents, I do have a question because I'm always with these children. So everything's great in my life, but I just feel like I'm a bit scheduled and routine. So, before marriage and kids, I really did wake up and do whatever I wanted in the day. And I enjoyed that freedom because it suits my flighty personality. But now I don't really have that option.
Let's talk about a flighty personality. A flighty personality is the best personality to have because you have so many interests. And you don't have to worry about committing to any one thing. You can just go with the flow of life and pay attention to anything that catches your attention at the time, which means you can receive inspiration and act on the inspiration. You don't have to say, like many other people will be in the middle of a task and they'll have inspiration and they will deny that inspiration because they want to finish that task because they think that task defines them. So flighty is the best possible personality to have. So continue.
I think so too. I love it. Precisely. But so I'm feeling a little torn. I'm trying to be that parent that supports my children and I want to help them their passions. I mean, I know that's why they chose me because I'm going to be like all in it. But then I have to sacrifice my time and I feel like a human taxi cab. And I'm kind of missing the things that I need to do for myself,
Well, pretty soon
I have an interest, but
there'll be self-driving cars, and you can just shuttle them off alone in these cars, and they can go wherever you set the GPS, and you can set it wherever you want to go, wherever you want them to go. But we will say that that this idea that you have to be a helicopter parent, or you have to survey everything they do, or control every minute of their lives, or tell them what to do in every moment of their lives, is not beneficial for you and for them. You can leave them alone. You can put them in daycare. They will be fine. They don't need to be around you all the time. They can experience other things. When they're around you, though, don't make them wrong.
Right.
It's as simple as that. The only reason you would ever make your children wrong is because you want to feel good. And you want to feel good as a good parent, or have some peace and quiet, or get what you want to get done without them bothering you, that sort of thing. If you can just take your attachment from their future off of you and realize that they have their own inner guidance system and that they'll be fine, then you can allow them to do what they want to do when they want to do it. While you are driving them around, where are you driving them to?
Oh gosh, we got cheer practice and daycares.
Who's so into doing cheer?
My stepdaughter, I take her 3 times a week.
Okay,
and she really likes it. She really wants to do it.
Excellent.
So I want to support her in that.
Okay, good. So you've got that. What's the other thing?
I've got my almost 3-year-old. He goes to a daycare type place almost every morning, and he really likes that. He really likes going to see his friends and playing around there.
Excellent. Good. So in that time when they're not there, do you have time to do stuff you want to do?
Yeah, I do.
So
I have a baby as well, but I do have time in between, like naps and things like that. So
do you think that you need more time than you have?
Probably not, but the time that I'm trying to keep to myself is when I do my meditation. So when I do have that time, I like to really put it in my meditation, but I do have a lot of other interests as well. But you're right. You're making me see that there's probably more time in there that I want to admit.
You can use your children as an excuse not to have time, but you're always going to use something as an excuse.
Yeah.
But when you realize that when you say, I want to focus on this and I don't care about the time that you have will be all the time you need.
That's true.
When you allow yourself to get into alignment and then receive the inspiration, it'll come when they're asleep or when they're at school or when you do have the time. And when you don't have the time, you don't have to worry that you don't have time to do what you're inspired to do. It'll all work out. The only thing that happens is that you have this sense that if only I had more of this, then I would have this. And you could say that about time or money or anything, or
Right.
love or whatever it is. It's always an excuse. And the more empowering way to look at it is that I have this and this and this is great, and that I know that when I have the time, I will receive the inspiration, and in the time I have, I will get more accomplished than I could do in days of uninspired time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great way to look at it. Yes.
I've dealt with this too, and Joshua told me a few months ago, like in the little moments where you do have a little bit of downtime, like when you're with the kids and they're not, or they told me when I'm with the kids and my attention isn't necessary, I have free space, like in the driving, when they're back there and they're entertaining themselves, using that time to think about these things, these passions that I have an interest. And the more I do that, the more I use those, recognize that those little moments of time do exist and then use them for that. Then by the time I get to the place where I do have the free time to sit down and do something, the inspiration to act is there because I've already spent time.
That'd be good. That'd be good.
If you focus, though, on this lack of time, then you're going to attract more lack of time. And then if you use the kids as an excuse to focus on lack of time, then you're going to resent the kids. And
yeah, that's true, because I'm not quite there yet. But yeah, I just started to bubble up because I haven't painted in forever, and I have a limiting belief that I need like all day to paint. I have to be inspired. I have to have the mood. I don't want to know. Then in a couple hours I have to go get somebody or someone's going to wake up from the nap. So I have this limiting belief that I need an X amount of time to paint. And so this kind of helps me change that around a little bit. And especially what Kyla said, but maybe I could start thinking about it and putting it out there. And who knows what will come from that.
If you realize that anything you need will come to you when you need it, that's what abundance is. That you might have needed a whole day to paint before.
Right.
Because you weren't really tuned in, tapped in, turned on, waiting for inspiration. You were maybe forcing it. Gary believed that he had a certain amount of time to do one-on-ones, and so that limited to the number of people that could do it. When he came back from the cruise, we told him that things will change, and that to accept whatever you can accept without worrying about it. And so the number of one-on-one people doubled. And he's found that he's able to do it in half the time that he did before. So he still had, and then also other things became less important. And so now he's just more energized and more focused in a way that is more productive than ever before. But had he not gone through that experience or allowed his vibration to raise or changed a limiting belief that he didn't have enough time, he couldn't have risen to that level. He would never have believed it. He couldn't have seen how it happened. He wouldn't have allowed it to happen. He would have limited it all the way through. So always think in the most empowering way and always trust that the universe is going to figure it out for you. But if you see it as a limiting belief, then you can work on that, which is really good. So the negative emotion comes up. I don't have enough time. You realize that that is a fear. It's an irrational fear. Time's not a real thing anyway. You have all the time in the world. Let's process that fear. Let's figure out that it's false. Let's realize that when I am inspired, it'll be at the right time, and then I'll have more ability to do more things more quickly. The time won't cause a factor that things will change, things will happen, and you'll get all the time you need. That's abundance, and this is your universe, your creation, and the people in your life are there for fun and enjoyment, but cannot create your reality. You create the reality. So you can have time and children and a family and everything you want at the same time. What else is your passion?
What I do, actually. I'm a fitness instructor. I teach bar classes. I was a dancer all my life. And I definitely know that when I got out of my 20s, I was not going to, keep with the job that I wasn't passionate about. So I at least got that, I wake up every day excited to go to work. I mean, it's exactly what I want to do. So I'm passionate about my work. Yeah. And
so you were living
I'm on my way.
Bliss,
yeah.
And everything is unfolding. And if you have desires for something, allow those to unfold too. And just have trust that you will be given inspiration to the next step and things are just going to work out.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Excellent. We have time for 14 more questions. Because we can do these really quick. Is there anyone with anything on their mind?
I just wanted to share with I'm not sure who was speaking beforehand, but I just wanted to share. Joshua, you told me the other day we were talking about passions, and I was telling you about my passion for words and writing. You said just write and don't care, just let it flow. And I've been experimenting with what I felt was my connection with my inner guide recently, and been experimenting writing every day and finding so much pleasure out of it. And before, I used to find excuses all the time to not write, for fears because the conditions were never right, didn't have time, etc. And yesterday I sat down with the intention of just letting it flow and writing fiction. And I didn't time it, but it was probably for maybe 30 minutes, and that's all it took, and it was super satisfying, and what came out was really great and just kind of really blew my mind. So I think it's just starting the momentum there, and it's just given me that drive to carry on. So just go with the flow and let your inspiration guide you, really.
When you feel inspired to write, you stop yourself from writing because you think, what if nothing comes out? What if it all comes out and it's not good? What if I only get one sentence out? What if I have something else to do? And then you think, well, I'll try again until I'm not really inspired. Well, you are inspired. If you have the thought to write, that's inspiration. But the fear's going to pop up, and you're just going to have to push through those fears, because you've proven to yourself that when you're inspired and you allow yourself to do it, great things happen. And you build on this momentum and this confidence by doing it every single day, by taking half an hour every day to sit down and to sit there and not to critique how the process works, not to worry about what comes out, just to let it flow. Because when you write a sentence and you judge that sentence as bad, you don't really know what's happening. Because in the context of whatever it is you're writing, a book, a play, a screenplay, whatever it is, that sentence may not have any meaning to you right then. But by the end of whatever you're doing, your vibration will be completely different. And then you will look back on that sentence and you say, my God, that is the most incredible sentence in the world. But from where you are now, you can't see how that fits in with this whole scheme of things you were doing. Plus, when you write and let things come out, because you're taking it from a higher thought, from a higher idea, your millions are writing. You're just the tool. You're just a tool to get it through. Imagine being a piano and having Elton John play you. You're just a tool to allow him to bring forth the music through you. He's just a tool too, of course, but so there's two tools. In your case, you have a pen that's a tool and you're the tool. There's two tools and you're letting it flow through you. The pen is not resistant. The keyboard's not resistant. The keyboard works perfectly every time. It's only you that can stop the flow, because you think that it defines you, what comes out. But it has nothing to do with you. The skill is in the allowing it to come, not in letting it define you. So you see people all the time who create masterpieces when they're young, and they believe that these masterpieces define them, and they can't create anything else after that. How many bands only do one album? The first album is amazing. The second album is nothing like it. They get this writer's block because they think that now they are these superstars who should be writing. It's the artists who are passionate about what they're doing, who want to live in bliss, who just want to do it. They don't care. They just don't care what comes out. It just comes out. They don't define themselves by what comes out. They say, it comes out, I don't know where this came from. It's amazing. It came out in 4 seconds. This is unbelievable. And it doesn't mean that I'm this magical person. It just means that I have gotten to a state of allowing and allow this stuff to come out. That's all that they're saying when they're talking to themselves. But if you define yourself, and you tend to do this, especially when you get a little bit older, that you believe that everything defines you. And if you can take yourself out of that step. When you're younger, you don't have these definitions because you haven't lived enough life. You are more optimistic and open to possibilities. But as you get older, you sort of think that, okay, I've done these accomplishments. This is what defines me. And if I go off in something new, in new territory, then I don't have any more definitions of me. And if I fail, that defines me too. but there is no such thing as failure. Failure is a complete illusion because everything you do is an expansive opportunity and you're here for the expansion of life and experience. So
I found that.
Go ahead.
No, I found that just letting it flow without having any expectation or judgment has been really freeing as a feeling. And I've noticed as well, it usually builds up to that sentence that brings a wave of goosebumps, and that when I know I've hit the spot, I'm in the flow, in the zone. And
so Gary is in the flow, in the zone now, and receives waves of goosebumps the entire time this is going on. So if you can psych yourself up to get into the flow, to realize that it's not you producing these thoughts, that you're receiving thoughts, you can allow it to come out, and you can allow the storytellers to tell whatever story they want to tell. Mm-hmm. If you have faith in their energy, and then your ability to translate your thoughts into words, the thoughts will keep flowing. You don't have to know where it's going. For the first year, Gary was typing away and not understanding any of this stuff. It was just, he didn't even know what the words were he was typing. He was such a distance from him that only when he was able to read it back did it make any sense. But as it was coming through, it didn't seem to make sense at all. It didn't seem like the sentences fit together at all. That's how jumbled it seemed to him. But he was just letting the thoughts come, knowing that it wasn't him. It was so much easier for him because he didn't think it was him. He's written wonderful things before, but always in a painful way of doing it, time-consuming, writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and getting to it. When he writes Joshua books, it's as it's written, every single word. There's no rewrites. It's just simply correct the typos because the fingers move so quickly. But it all comes out in a finished book, and that's how it will be for anything you do, whether it's painting a painting, writing a story, creating a business, creating a new website, doing whatever you want to do. Realize that you're not doing it. Let the thoughts flow to you, and then just translate those thoughts onto the paper or the computer or the canvas or whatever it is. If you can get out of the way, everything you want will flow to you.
Thank you. I just wanted to interrupt
I'm sorry,
and
we're
say
all out of time today.
Hey, guys. Oh, that's okay. It was just a comment to say thank you because
we were playing with you. We were waiting for you to come forth.
Well, I've just had waves of goosebumps on this call, and it's been the first time. And I finally understood the sentence, limitless being of pure positive love and acceptance, finally. And I've understood about the persona and the characteristics and them dropping away and us becoming one because there are no longer these characteristics. And I guess, I've had these aha moments before, and I've been afraid of losing them, and I know that then I dip, partly because of the fear and stuff. And so, I felt this come up too. It was like, oh my God, I just had this complete wow download, and then I go into fear. But I know that's the characteristic, personality, etc. But still, I have lost these aha moments before.
Well, luckily for you, these are all on the internet. You can listen to these over and over again.
I
know. So there's no need to retain the aha moments because you didn't create the aha moment. You just received it. You just got into alignment with the aha moment, and the aha came through you. And once you've attracted that aha, it's with you forever. You can always realign to it. You can always connect to it. You can connect to your inner self anytime you feel good, and you can think about it and maybe write something down. What was I thinking about here? What about the persona? What should I do? And the idea may come, well, why don't you read question number 43 of Kyla? Or why don't I go to this website? Or why don't I go to this? Or why don't I listen to this podcast? Or why don't we do this? That's the inspiration. You don't have to figure it out. You just say, you know what? There was an aha moment here. I wonder what that was from. And then you will receive inspiration. And then you just go do it. But if you have fear that it won't come back to you, well, then you just cut yourself off from the inspiration. This makes so much sense from our perspective.
Of course.
Well, we have enjoyed being with you, leading edge, co-creative, masters, enlightened beings, so much that we can hardly wait to get back with you again next week. But for us, luckily, next week is already here, and we're almost finished with next week's conversation as well. And you were all brilliant in that conversation.
Okay.
Brought out stuff that doesn't happen. You should see you in 3 years. The stuff you will bring out in 3 years is unbelievable. No spoiler alerts, but...
Please do.
Yeah, I want some spoiler alerts.
And
You're
no
not
pressure.
vibrationally ready for the magic that's going to happen in 3 years. The
No
ahas
pressure.
that are coming in 3 years are going to blow your mind in 3 years. If we told them to you now, you'd be like, what? You wouldn't understand it at all. They just go right over your head. So, with all the love in the universe for all of you and for everyone who's listening here, allow yourself to be who you are. Allow yourself to process fear. Nothing serious is going on. You cannot fail. You cannot make a mistake. It's not possible to get anything wrong. You're never going to get it done. All you're going to do is experience life, sift and sort, create desires, get to new places, and then do it all over again a million other times. And with that, we are complete.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.